Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video. We're about to do a parallel drive with a Kona Electric. Let's hit the road.
First, I'd like to start off by thanking David for volunteering his new Hyundai Kona Electric to do a parallel drive with me and my Bolt EV. It was raining when we first started out, and before we left, we were helping a new Leaf owner. Well, they had purchased a used 2016 Leaf. The fact that the Leaf driver, Alex, was struggling with whether or not he would even be able to make it the 50 miles into Hollywood in that weather was a good illustration of just how far we've come. After we helped Alex get on his way, and I hope you made it where you were going, Alex, David and I made our way up onto the freeway. The rain was very bad and it made for some bad filming. However, by the time we reached the summit of Cajon Pass at 4,190 feet, it had started to break up, and we crested over, heading through Victorville up Interstate 15. During this parallel drive, one of the main things that I wanted to test out was the Kona Electric's actual real world freeway efficiency using my Bolt EV as a sort of control. Because I know my car so well, driving parallel to the Kona Electric would give me a really good idea of what you could expect at freeway speeds in terms of efficiency. Along the way, I knew that David would enjoy this, so I made sure we stopped by Eddy World in Yermo. Now, we had to scoot past the gas pumps and the Tesla superchargers, which had nothing for us, but we were able to park in front of the new charge point chargers that are going in. And this is going to be a great stop for electric vehicle owners who are traveling between Los Angeles and Las Vegas or even heading up toward Bakersfield. We even got to see some of the charge points tritium V-fill charger boxes that they ordered. It said Fragile on it, so I'm pretty sure it's got to be Italian. At this point, just speaking with David about the efficiency he was seeing in the Kona Electric, I could already tell that it was a little bit more efficient at 75 miles an hour than the Bolt EV. And this was going to give a good test because going from Yermo into Baker is actually downhill for most of the way. So it gave a good chance to see what the difference would be when a lot of the energy was being recouped. Even with a couple of the chargers down at the EVgo in Baker, California, they still have plenty of other charging units that we were able to find spots without an issue. David seemed rather impressed when I hooked up my Bolt EV and it immediately jumped up to 150 amps on the BTC power units that can provide 150 kilowatts. But then it was David's turn to hook up his Kona Electric, and we put him on the 350 kilowatt charger. However, with one of the units down, it looks like it was restricted to 175 kilowatts. Regardless, that should more than max out the Kona Electric's charging rate. And sure enough, because he was down into the faster charging rate of his battery, it ended up peaking at 76 kilowatts, which is much faster than I've seen the Kona Electric charge in any other videos. And I think that has to do with most of the Kona Electrics I've seen up to this point were charging in Europe. And in Europe, it seems like they're having some issues with some of their higher powered CCS chargers. With our curiosity satisfied, it was time to satisfy our stomachs. So we went ahead and ate at the Market 15 cafe right next to the chargers. When we were done eating, we decided to head out, and David's Kona had already finished its 45-minute session, so he took the time to start showing off some of the features. His Kona Electric is the middle trim, so it has things like the sunroof and some additional features, so it's not the fully decked out Kona Electric. So while I was checking out the interior, we took a ride around Baker and decided to drive through the superchargers in Baker. Looking at the materials inside the Kona Electric, I actually think the material quality is very, very similar to the Bolt EV, though it's a different layout, and Hyundai has incorporated some soft touch materials where they're absent from the Bolt EV. For instance, the door panels do have a little bit more soft touch material, and the seats are a little bit more cushioned. The seats don't feel any wider than the Bolt EV's seats. However, with the softer additional padding, the bolstering seems to fold down, which ends up making the seats feel a bit wider. Next, David showed me some of the screens on the infotainment system. You can select from 3 different drive modes: the Sport, the Eco, and the Eco Plus. And then we went back out to test the Regen. So the Kona Electric has 4 settings for Regen, and what I found is to translate it to the Bolt EV, the 0 is as though you had no Regen at all. Regen setting 1 in the Kona Electric is lighter than D in the Bolt EV. Regen setting 2 is a little bit stronger than D in the Bolt EV, and Regen setting 3 in the Kona is fairly similar to L in the Bolt EV. And like the Bolt EV, the Kona Electric does have a Regen paddle that you can pull on the left side of the steering wheel that will bring you to a complete stop. Now, one of the things that's missing from my Bolt EV is the ability to set your battery charging limits. But the Kona Electric does a really good job of this by separating it into AC charging, DC charging, and then even a charging mode for how many amps and how much power you take off of level 2. So it can adjust in 10% increments for both DC and AC charging. And then you have an option of setting the AC charger at the 240 volt to a minimum, reduced, and maximum. And that way you can choose how much power you're drawing. So if you do want to set your level 2 charger to a lower power rate, you can do so. One of my main criticisms of the Kona Electric is how little room it leaves for rear passengers, but I found it interesting how the rear seats slope, and that actually does help you a little bit with the leg room, but it doesn't compensate for the overall lack of space. In terms of exterior styling and dimensions, I do think that the Kona Electric is a really good looking car overall. It has a lot of really good design lines and some very cohesive design themes. And one thing that I do really like about the Kona Electric is that Hyundai took the time to add some very subtle but effective aerodynamic treatments to the exterior of the vehicle. For instance, they've included the automatic shutters on the cooling grill in the front, and they also have a air duct that routes air through the front of the bumper and out away from the tires and the front wheel wells. That can considerably improve some of the aerodynamics. In addition, the rims as well have much smaller openings and vent much less air, and all of these combined to improve the efficiency at higher highway speeds. One additional element that I am concerned about with the Kona Electric, however, is how far the battery protrudes below the chassis of the vehicle. If you're primarily driving on paved roads, this shouldn't be an issue. However, if you occasionally go over steep speed bumps, or if you go over railroad crossings or possibly on unpaved roads, I would use caution and be aware that the battery does seem like it's a bit exposed to those types of elements. Overall, I do think that the interior of the Kona Electric is really nice. The main criticism, again, is just the rear passenger room and then the overall cargo room with the seats folded down. And the other area where I do feel like the Bolt EV has a significant advantage over the Kona Electric is in the design and layout of the infotainment center and front console area, where it's a bit more open and free and less like a cockpit, and you do have a larger infotainment screen with fewer buttons overall. The rear cargo area of the Kona Electric actually seems smaller than what it's stated to be. However, it has a false floor that can remove, but I do think that that room is accounted for in Hyundai's official specs for the Kona Electric. By the time we were ready to leave Baker, California, the wind had already started to pick up, and this was going to be a significant issue as it was presenting something between a 20 and 30 mile an hour headwind and front quartering wind. So on our way back, even though we were trying to maintain close to 75 miles an hour, the headwinds and front quartering winds were making our effective speed as far as efficiency is concerned closer to driving at about 100 to 110 miles an hour. As we approached Victorville, we were actually considering whether we should pull off and top up at the Victorville EVgo charger rather than heading back to our original starting point in Ontario. However, we decided to soldier on, and I knew I'd have at least 1% battery by the time we arrived back at the chargers in Ontario Mills. And sure enough, I had nearly 2% battery left. Nearly, by the time we stopped in Ontario Mills. David's Kona Electric did a little bit better, and he arrived with about 21% battery left. Now, neither of us left with a full battery. I believe mine was at 92% and his was at 96%. Now, in terms of the round trip efficiency, the Bolt EV returned about 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour. The Kona Electric on the return, it had dropped from 4.1 miles per kilowatt hour in Baker, California to 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour by arriving back in Ontario. Still, though, this is worth noting because using my Bolt EV as a control, if the Kona Electric is in fact 8 to 9% more efficient at 75 miles per hour, which it appears to be, that means that the Kona Electric is as efficient at 75 miles an hour as a Tesla Model 3 all-wheel drive with the aero caps on. Just based on my testing with Bjorn Nealon, Alex Venz, and a few others, the Kona Electric would have ranked very highly among a mixed group of Tesla Model 3s testing at 75 mile an hour sustained driving.
All right, well, that was a really fun parallel drive. Thank you, David, again for reaching out to me and agreeing to do this parallel drive with your Kona Electric. I think I learned a lot about the Kona Electric that I didn't know before, and I'm more impressed with it than I was before. You know, some of the things that I don't like about the Kona Electric, those are things that I could easily recognize just sort of by looking at it or looking at the stats in terms of the amount of rear passenger room or the seat down cargo room, or sort of the way the configuration of the front cabin is in terms of, you know, it feels a little bit compressed and compact. The layout and the design of the infotainment system, those are the things that I knew I didn't really like going in, and I kind of knew that already, and seeing it in person wasn't going to change that. However, what I came away impressed with is the charging speed and the efficiency, both of which exceeded my expectations based on what I had seen before. I thoroughly believe at this point that the Kona Electric's highway efficiency, specifically according to the EPA, is understated. So I know that the Bolt EV achieves its highway rated efficiency at about 70 to 75 miles per hour sustained speeds, which is really sort of on the high end. And you could say that the Bolt EV is overachieving its EPA highway rating, but the Kona Electric takes it a step above even that. It looks like its highway efficiency rating is achieved maybe when it's driving at 80 miles an hour, which is a ridiculous speed for something that's supposed to be rating typical highway or freeway usage. So I'm really impressed with that. I'm also really impressed with the fact that it seems to have a peak charging rate of about 75 to 76 kilowatts when it was using that 350 kilowatt charger. Most of what I've seen so far have been European Kona Electrics, and they haven't been charging that fast. But I think that could be as much of an issue with the European chargers, European charger cords. They just don't consistently seem to be able to put out the same type of power. Yeah, so the Kona Electric really impressed in that regard. So, what's my final conclusion? So, say I had to buy an electric vehicle and I could only choose from the ones that are, you know, upcoming at this point. Would I buy a Kona Electric? No. And the reason for that actually doesn't have to do with any sort of specific inadequacy in the Kona Electric. It's just now knowing what I know about the Kona Electric and knowing how much of its powertrain, battery, and charging are shared with the Kia Niro EV. To me, that's the electric vehicle to get. It has almost all of the strengths of both the Kona Electric and the Bolt EV and very few of the weaknesses. To me, the Nero EV is still the EV that I'm most excited to see upcoming. Spoiler alert, hopefully, I'll have one to test out soon. So let me know what you think. Did you enjoy this overview? Do you have any additional questions about the Kona Electric? What do you like? What do you dislike about it? What EVs are upcoming that you're really excited about? If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and thank you for watching.